domination. I'm going to come back to that. 2, they organized these folks into revolutionary mass movements rather than into parties that represented discrete and particular interests. 3, they monopolized state power, mobilizing these movements in order to take over the economy and then all pillars of society. Churches, universities, business organizations, media, cultural institutions, all were either neutralized or suppressed. 4, they shifted power from the army to the police. 5, they used propaganda or organized lying as a key instrument of power, particularly to those outside the Nazi inner circle. 6, they were relentlessly ideological, meaning they deployed a single idea to explain all history. The struggle, the scientific struggle between the races where the weak and degenerate will be annihilated as the master race wins out. And this they deployed openly in the pursuit of world domination. 7, terror was their form of rule. Arendt describes the impact of terror on people as holding them in a band of iron, complete isolates, squeezed tightly together. People could not move, they could not discuss, they could not combine. And movement and combining are the elemental conditions for the exercise of freedom. What was unprecedented? Arendt didn't think the genocide was unprecedented. It was horrifying that it wasn't unprecedented. What was unprecedented, and I'm going to pull out 2 major things, was 1, the aim to remake reality itself, essential to which was extinguishing spaces of debate, encounter, speech, opinion, and interest formation, a world, in short, that gathers and separates us, a plural world of others. So that was central to the project of remaking reality, was extinguishing those spaces. The second thing that she argued, which was unprecedented, was that the aim of totalitarianism was to make the uniqueness of the human person superfluous. Whether in concentration camps, in the terror units, or in the highest levels of bureaucracy, both victims and executioners lived in a world in which who they were as distinctive beings had no place. The effect was, she thought, the unforgivable reduction of the human person to living corpses. So what should haunt us about all this? A lot. But today, first, the resonances with the Trump regime's cocktail of fear, racist scapegoating as an instrument of mobilization, delegitimizing the press, the judiciary. There's more coming, I'm sure. Those 2 are critically targets right now. Remaking reality through the emancipation from not only empirical facts and evidence-supported claims, but also without any concern for and an embarrassment about their unscrupulousness, the corruption, the lying, endorsement of torture, the intentional sowing of chaos, the rise of an ideology of racial supremacy, a totalizing ethos in which winning is everything, and a ruthless blamelessness. I think these things, in light of the experience of totalitarianism, should haunt us about our present. Second thing that should haunt us is that the material and psychological conditions that made it possible for the Nazis to mobilize masses around an ideologically constructed enemy are the very same conditions in which our politics is unfolding today. Those material conditions are a capitalist, economic, and bourgeois social world in which private gain, in a ruthless world is celebrated, and where profound economic suffering combined with deep social isolation is the condition of many. The psychological consequences of this are that losers feel superfluous, expendable, a condition that produces, Arendt argued, not only anger, which it does, but, she said, a radical loss of self-interest. What she called a fatalistic selflessness. Very interesting to think about this. Where people are vulnerable in that kind of a condition, that psychological condition. People are vulnerable, prone to manipulation, and certain recklessness. So, in the recent election, many asked, how can the poor and the working class vote against their interests? Arndt's analysis suggests we look for the answer in these material and psychological conditions in dynamics and mission objects. A couple of thoughts on action. Don't underestimate what is going on today. Don't underestimate. Someone asked me to say this. Do not underestimate what is going on today and what it could become. And I'm going to give you an example of that underestimation pull from many, many different places. It was an article, an op-ed, or an article in New York Times that Paul Krugman, the economist, wrote, I think, last week, maybe the week before. And he's writing about the Trump administration floating a 20% tariff on Mexican imports. And this is what he says, so this is a direct quote. He says, "This loose talk epitomizes the pattern we are already seeing in this shambolic administration, a pattern of dysfunction, ignorance, incompetence, and betrayal of trust." When I look at what's happening today, I think this is a radical under-reading of what's going on. What's going on is a ruthless experimentation with the limits of possibility. What can we do? So don't underestimate either what is going on or what could develop. I think that's one of the main, I don't know if that's a thought on action. Yeah, it is. Underestimate. It's an action. Terrible. The second is organize the like-minded to protect, defend, and resist the targeting of vulnerable groups and fascist policies. Form worlds where people can see each other and identify common interests, develop a sense of shared fate and collective power. And I know many of you are doing that. The third, many of you probably aren't doing, which is reach beyond the like-minded and don't demonize or ridicule. Isolated, left-out people are dangerous. Draw them into conversation, hear stories, see if and where common cause can be made and organized. Our culture as our people is deformed by a dog-eat-dog sense of the world, and many are deeply atomized and feel.
Lyndon Johnson, Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George Bush, Barack Obama, and Donald Trump all have in common besides being presidents of the United States. Right. They were all called fascist by some people who objected to their policies. The third usage that I'm going to refer to is actually Bertram Gross's concept of friendly fascism, which is a bizarre term, but he used this in 1980 to argue that the United States was heading toward a future in which a secretly democratic America would eventually be governed by a despotic network consisting of a relatively invisible and small number of ultra-rich global corporate managers working in concert with a chief executive network and military hierarchy. And finally, the term is being used currently to describe the political consequences of neoliberal globalization, using, not surprisingly, the term neo-fascism. Before I continue, I want to share a caution from a political scientist, Alan Wolf. He wrote this one critiquing Gross's notion of friendly fascism. Wolf wrote, fascism, at least the version practiced by Hitler and Mussolini, was a state of radical uniqueness in its terror and barbarity against the human spirit that the social scientist has an obligation never to use the term again unless it refers to the real thing. It is a profound insult to the victims of genocide to label as fascist, with or without any particular adjective, the trends emerging in American society, no matter how ugly those trends may be. Now, I'm not sure I agree entirely with Wolf's claim that social scientists should never use the word fascism, except when referring to classical fascism. However, I do think there is some need for analytic clarity when we do use the word, and we should avoid using it as a moral bludgeon against forms of despotism, even ugly forms, that do not rise to the level of fascism. Now, if I can make the technology work here. Okay, great. Okay, so, and I've got some copies of this. I only made 40, but if you all would kind of pass those out and share. So keeping Wolf's caution in mind, I want to address two questions. The first is, to what extent does the current U.S. presidential administration, headed by the rapist-in-chief Donald Trump, display characteristics associated with classical fascism? And second, to what extent can we say that Gross's prediction that the United States was on a path to being governed by a new form of totalitarianism correct? Now, classical fascism was characterized by a particular heinous and tripartite relationship between capitalist industry and finance, a totalitarian state, and a robust and aggressive military, to which were added a constellation of singular characteristics. And these are, read that or not, but I'll eventually talk about that. These are a charismatic dictator, one-party rule, which the fascist party displaces the historic state, government by decree rather than legislation, courts subservient to the party, demonization of outgroups purported to pose existential threats to national life, culture, and identity, establishment of the sovereign as sole source of truth, hyper-nationalism, and mobilization of mass support for irrational ideas. I would say we're far too early into the Trump presidency to have any real way of knowing if the Republic will survive his term in office, or be replaced by a classically fascist state, or some other form of totalitarianism. However, I suggest that we can assess inclinations of the executive to see how they just look against this. So that's what I have up here. Okay. Do we have a charismatic dictator? Well, we have a charismatic leader, for sure, someone who is seen as charismatic by a significant portion of the public. That leader has a will to dictatorship. I think that's fairly clear in his overweening kind of egomania. However, have we have a dictatorship? Has that been achieved? Probably not now, and I would say probably never. One-party rule, which the fascist state, the fascist party displaces the state. I would say not yet, and I'm also going to say at this point, I don't see any apparent will to create more of a single-party state than we already have. And that, I mean that in two terms. One, there is only one party in the United States, and that's the Capitalist Party. It has two wings, and as it turns out, one of those two wings may achieve the goal of a permanent Republican majority, unless there are changes in the electoral process and so on. So, I don't see any real change coming in. Government by decree rather than legislation? No, not yet. However, we clearly see a will to govern by decree as executive orders. Courts subservient to the party? Not yet. Although we clearly see efforts to delegitimize courts that disagree, as per the so-called judge remark, which was the first kind of out-of-the-box shot against the judge being the first one to contradict Donald. Demonization of threatening outgroups? Absolutely. Characterization of Mexican immigrants, Muslims, and homegrown criminals as existential threats to the so-called American way of life were in
But vagina does not equal woman, and woman does not equal vagina, and having one does not make you one. also fascism. And I think it's perfect that I went behind you. Because I'm going to be kind of challenging definitions of classical definitions of fascism. There is evidence of Two-Spirit people in what we call the United States being targeted by white colonizers in processes of genocidal violence. Also, extrajudicial murders of black and brown people by the police is fascism. I don't use this word lightly, and I don't think I'm watering it down by using this word in this moment and in the history of this place. At the National Women's Studies Association conference in November, right after the election, Leanne Bedesomasaki Simpson, who is Michi Anishinaabe scholar, writer, and artist, said that indigenous people have been surviving white supremacy, settler colonialism, and heteropatriarchy for over 500 years and will continue to do so, and that this is nothing brand new, and that also many have not survived. The occupied Skull and Dene land we are on now, and the people living here have seen over 500 years of fascism. On the book list for surviving fascism that I've seen so far, I do not see women of color and or trans and non-binary authors. I do not see indigenous women and Two-Spirit people. I do not see titles that look like they are addressing homophobia, transphobia, and ableism. If you have a resource that couches fascism and surviving the new face of fascism, let me know. We are also creating one that's circling around the room, so please add your recommended books to that list. Have you been getting it? Yeah, okay. I'd like to share a quote from Mia Mingus because she provides another way to think through how fascism works. Ableism is included in our analysis of oppression and in our conversations about violence, responses to violence, and ending violence. Ableism cuts across all of our movements because ableism dictates how bodies should function against a mythical norm. An able-bodied standard of white supremacy, heterosexism, sexism, economic exploitation, moral, religious beliefs, age, and ability. Ableism set the stage for queer and trans people to be institutionalized as mentally disabled, for communities of color to be understood as less capable, smart and intelligent, therefore naturally fit for slave labor, for women's bodies to be used to produce children when, where, and how men needed them, for people with disabilities to be seen as disposable in a capitalist and exploitative culture because we are not seen as productive, for immigrants to be thought of as a disease that we must cure because it is weakening our country, for violence, cycles of poverty, lack of resources, and war to be used as systematic tools to construct disability communities and entire countries. And so with that quote, I want us to think about connections between Nazi Germany and the United States. I want to connect fascism to rape culture, which, as Andrea Smith and others have pointed out, has been and continues to be a way of enacting power and violence, a way of continuing settler colonialism, white supremacy, and heteropatriarchy. Fascism is also not having access to abortion, but as Loretta Ross, founder of Sister Song, points out, reproductive oppression, including forced sterilization and not being able to raise your kids in safety due to racism and immigration policies. This should be part of the conversation about fascism. Rape is fascism, incest is fascism, fascism is the Dakota Access Pipeline. It's saying all lives matter to thus deny the necessity to declare that Black lives matter. Fascism is denying people's and communities' realities, which we see DT, his supporters, and mainstream news doing, which has been happening for hundreds of years. It's part of the gaslighting that is deeply intertwined with perpetrator mindfucking. I'm going to say that again. It's part of the gaslighting that is deeply intertwined with perpetrator mindfucking. It's deeply triggering and makes surviving the mental illnesses difficult, including but not limited to anxiety and depression and PTSD that is unrecognized as such by many sexual assault survivors and people who live with the daily traumas of racism, colonialism, sexism, capitalism, ableism, homophobia, transphobia, and being told you are overreacting to the realities of your lived experience. It's easy to think about the way fascism exists outside of ourselves, but I want to ask, what are the ways is it entered our and your own minds? What do you do about the ways we reenact fascism, and how do you and we unlearn this? Again, not a monolithic you here. I want to emphasize the need for us as communities to take care of each other, Trauma response right now is really high, and especially in people whose lives or loved ones are on the line and whose safety is being deteriorated, and it's only been less than 20 days. May we continue to find ways to nourish radical self and community care, like Leah Lakshmi Piatsina-Samasarin has written about. There are a lot of strong community-based organizations right now acting in resistance in Flagstaff, and if you're not already hooked in, I encourage you to do so. And maybe people could just do a quick shout out on what some of those groups are. I see you here. So. I only have one more sentence after that, so please say. I have 2 more minutes. So, do you want to say the names of groups in Flagstaff?
Counteract.
Together we will, Northern area.
Repeal Coalition.
Northern Arizona Interfaith Council. Northern Arizona Dream Fund.
Living Wage Coalition.
I know there's other, huh?
Together we will, Northern Arizona.
That was mentioned before.
1 Billion Rising.
No more deaths.
Friends, Flagstaff Speech.
Flagstaff Community Coalition.
I know we're missing. What else are we missing?
Standing up for racial justice.
What else?
Defunding of the Access
The Queer Activist Collective, Indigenous Youth for Cultural Survival, the Indigenous Community Forum.
So with that, I will just notice what's in the room right now with us, and I look forward to our conversation tonight, to hearing your ideas about resisting and defying all forms of fascism. Thank you.
This will work well. I think I'm right in between the last two in my way to find it. I'm Sean Parson. I'm in the Politics and International Affairs Department. So currently there are 2 dominant ways of discussing and explaining fascism that I feel undermine our ability to understand the usage of the term. The first is the way in which fascism become a pejorative used to attack any perspective that you might disagree with. This can be seen with the usage of the term to attack conservatives like Bush and Romney, who are conservative and not, in my mind, not fascists, and also by the use of the fascism to mean any coercive use of force. In this latter definition, the anti-fascist protesters attacking Milo and Berkeley are the real fascists. But this usage of the term is nonsensical. If use of coercive force is what defines fascism as an ideology, then all the ideologies are fascists, and the term therefore has no meaning. The other way of talking about fascism that I think is problematic is to only focus on the historic. This perspective sees fascism as a set of platforms of belief exposed by Mussolini and Hitler, and does not believe that fascism grows or develops over time. We do not expect any other ideology to follow this perspective and not to grow. And I think viewing it not as a living ideology is short-sighted and wrong. So what I want to do in my short talk is I want to describe what I think are the core of fascist ideologies and try to understand what an American contextualized fascism theoretically means. So there have been many attempts to define fascism, and all the ones I've seen have had kernels of truth. So Trotsky referred to fascism as a cross-class alliance between the petty bourgeoisie and the ruling elite. Mussolini defined it as a fusion of corporations with the state, and what's his name? And others have described it as, Roger Griffin has defined it as a form of ultranationalism. All these have some kernels of truth to them. Fascism has every one of these components to it. But I feel that all these definitions focus too much on the European experience on the ground and don't actually engage with the ideological logic that makes them. So I want to define fascism very simply as revolutionary traditionalism. Fascism is revolutionary, unlike traditional conservatism, and such borrows theories and tactics from the revolutionary left. And it is also radically traditional, focusing on the creation of mythic nationalism. This means that fascism in each country and each locale will look and operate differently depending on the contexts. So fascism in Italy in 1930 will look different than fascism in the US then or now. That said, I think there are some overlapping themes that seem to exist within all fascist politics. First, all fascists reject equality and promote rigid hierarchies. These hierarchies are usually structured through an understanding of race and gender, but can also function in other ways. This understanding of natural inequality means that fascists oppose government attempts to promote equality and to develop equality. As such, fascism opposes Marxism, as well in a different way liberal multiculturalism, as both are seen in their minds as creating a form of forced equality. Second, fascism promotes a form of hypermasculinity that sees expression of male strength, be it on the battlefield or in war or in the boardroom of corporations, as essential to defining the nation. In this regard, fascism is an ideology that actively works to strengthen and protect patriarchy, and to fight against feminist critiques of it. The construction of traditional gender roles, the general opposition to homosexuality, or at least the idea of a queer culture, and general hostility towards the feminization of culture are all central aspects of all fascist politics. 3, fascism is unique and differs from right-wing populism because it is both mass-based as well as anti or critical of democracy. We'll see in the American context this changes at all. 4, fascism is critical of capitalism, and especially a form of global capitalism, and instead promotes a form of economic nationalism that seeks to protect and defend national economic inequalities. And 5th and last for the main themes, fascism requires an enemy-friend dynamic. There needs to be both a domestic and a foreign enemy that is an existential threat to the nation. The internal enemy must be used to be described as the core group responsible for the fall from grace from the idealized conception of the nation. And the outside group has to be something to force a cohesive sense of national self. Right. Other than these unique characteristics, I would argue that fascism needs to be understood within the cultural and historical context that it is being described in. So in this case, the US right now has a different, fascism would look differently here than it did in Germany and Italy during the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, and different than it would look like in, for instance, the Philippines right now. When it comes to fascism in the US, I argue that there's 3 different ways that they tend to look at mythologizing US history. And they all look at different time periods, but they all end up coming up with a very similar understanding of politics. 1, fascists can look to the pre-Civil War America as an idealized nation state. In which racial order was protected, traditional conservative values dominated, and America thrived as an economic power for the House. 2, they can look to the Western frontier and the settler colonial myth of American greatness during this period of colonial expansion, and view that as part of what defines an American identity. And 3rd, they can look to the 1950s where Jim Crow, an American racial apartheid system functioned, where gender norms were strongly enforced, and where economic wealth and prosperity reigned for the white working class American. These are, I think, the 3 historical periods that fascism in the US could look to create this national conception of a mythic self. What you see with all 3 is that traditionalism is structured on racial, gender, and
multiculturalism to a compost heap. She has said that Border Patrol should use firearms when necessary when dealing with refugees trying to enter. She has a manifesto that says Islam is not part of Germany. This is particularly, like in France, particularly bothersome in Germany because they have a long history of Turks in the country. She's called on a ban on minarets and burqas. And her party has done better than expected in state elections. They have peeled votes away from the CDU, which is the traditional party of the right, that's Angela Merkel's party, but still not over about 15% support. All right, so where is she polling right now? She's the blue line. She's polling at about 12%. I'm going to skip through there and I'm going to talk for 1 second. All right, so take home points. Support across Europe of far-right parties is hovering about 30%, about 1/3 of the population. Right, this support has been accompanied by a crisis among the traditional left. Right, the traditional left has split into the workers' left in most instances and a left libertarian left, and they haven't been able to kind of garner support one way or another, large support. All right, we're likely in the future to see grand coalitions form, which means we're going to see parties of the left and right entry together in coalition. And what we are seeing is known as an authoritarian post-materialism in Europe. And I can talk about that more later if you have questions. But basically, where cultural issues are important, but people want authoritarian leaders. All right, so cultural authoritarianism. And this, like Ray was talking about from the 80s, this was predicted by somebody named Flanagan in the 1980s, that we would see this start to develop in Europe.
All right, can you guys hear okay in the back? Everything all right? All right, my name's Luis.